You need internet, you need PC. Welcome everyone to our talk show this evening. We're happy to have you over. We're looking forward to a nice discussion that we're going to have with our special guests today on the show. And I think a lot of you might be experiencing some load shedding. Hopefully not. All right, let's see. We have people coming in now. It is my co-host that's joining us on the show. Figile, welcome.
Hi, everybody.
I was about to send a search hunt there.
A search party. I know. No need anymore. I'm here.
That's good. How are you doing, Figile?
I'm doing great. And how are you, Noah?
No, I'm doing fine, thanks. So what do you think about our new platform this evening?
I can't say much because it's new. We can expect anything from it. Let's hope we'll get a hangout of it.
Hopefully it behaves. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Without further ado, we like to introduce our new, not our new show, but our special guests. But I think Figile can do a better job in doing that. Figile.
You trust me so much, eh?
You know, hey, you're my right guy.
Okay, no, that's fine. No, thank you very much. Hi, everybody. So today we will be talking about investing, property investments post-COVID. Everybody wants to invest, but they don't know where now to invest. So today we've got our guest speaker who's a specialist, Vuyiswa Ramahoba. Please, let's welcome her to the platform today. Vuyiswa, welcome. You will introduce yourself further because I don't want to cut. You'll tell us who is Vuyiswa. Please introduce yourself.
Welcome, Vuyiswa.
Hi, everyone. Hi, Noah. Hi, Figile. Hope you can see and hear me clearly.
Hi, welcome, Vuyiswa.
Welcome. All right, so you want me to just introduce myself?
Tell us who is Vuyiswa. I did mention that Vuyiswa is a specialist in the field of property investment, but she'll tell us more on post-COVID because actually before you get to post-COVID, we'll have to compare the two. Pre-COVID, how was investing in properties? What were the investors expecting? And then post-COVID, what is happening in the market? You'll tell us more, but first off, tell us about who Vuyiswa is.
Yeah. I can wait.
Okay, so hi again. My name is Vuyiswa Ramahoba. I often refer to myself as a property generalist in that I kind of work across many different areas of the property industry. But I am very passionate indeed about property in all of its facets and its shapes and its forms. I am currently the MD of an investment entity called AWIP Investments. That stands for African Women in Property. Until recently, I was CEO of the South African Institute of Black Property Practitioners, which is a 26-year-old organization that is dedicated to championing transformation in the property sector. So very passionate about transforming the property sector and changing, patterns of ownership in the property sector, seeing more black ownership, more women ownership in the sector. That is definitely an area that I'm very passionate about, and I spent 7 years leading that organization. I also am chairperson of the National Property Practitioners Council, which is the council that oversees all of the property sector associations and organizations. And I'm involved in the mortgage origination industry as well. I'm a part owner of an entity called Multinet Home Loans, which helps people to get the best price, the best deal on their mortgages when they're looking for mortgages. And various other things. I sit on a number of boards, advisory councils and panels, and I'm just very much involved in all aspects of the property sector. Yeah.
Wow, you've said so much. I was going to say too little. That's why I allowed you to introduce yourself. See, you told us more that I wasn't going to say. You said, what do you identify yourself as?
A property generalist.
Which I think?
Property generalist. No, I mean
property generalist. I never knew it existed.
It's not an official label, but I heard you saying a property specialist, and I'm saying no. In fact, I think I'm more a generalist than a specialist. Yeah.
Wow. Thank you, Vuyiso. So tell us, our topic today is about investing in properties. First off, tell us who is eligible to invest in properties.
So, look, I think that's probably a second question, right? Because I think
like we lost
before we get to questions of, can you hear me?
Now I can hear you. I lost you a bit. Yes.
Oh, okay. I was saying, I think maybe before we even get to questions of eligibility, we need to maybe unpack a bit what is property, what is investing in property, and what do we mean when we talk about property as an industry, right?
Investment. That's correct. Yes.
So I'm going to start there, and then I'll get to your question.
Okay. We'll be happy. I was going to ask that one later, but yes, start there.
So the property industry is a very broad industry in that, it touches every aspect of our lives. So there is residential property. In other words, the homes that we live in, apartments, sectional titles, freestanding homes, estates. That's what most of us are accustomed to, the residential section of the industry. There's also the commercial sector. And the commercial sector, even within the commercial sector, is split into various segments. So you've got, under the commercial sector, you've got the retail property sector, the industrial and logistics sector, and the office commercial sector. And then you've also got even other areas such as student accommodation, which is still an up-and-coming kind of sub-asset class within the sector. And then further to that, you've also got so-called indirect investments, right? So you can invest into listed property funds or listed REITs, and you can do that via listed platforms, a stockbroker or whatever. You can get involved in property investment clubs, stokvels and the likes, where you make indirect and passive investments into property. And I think lastly, there's also the property services section of the industry that a lot of people don't often think about. Property, yes, there's the investment aspect, but there's also the service aspect of property, which is the management of property, the selling and buying and leasing of property. So that's where all your estate agents and property brokers would fall. There's the transacting side, the legal side, where you've got conveyancers and property valuers and people who inspect properties, property inspectors. So it's a really large value chain that accounts for quite a significant portion of our GDP and our gross national income. And besides that, really kind of touches our lives in some shape or form every single day. There's not a day that you don't engage with property. Your school is a property. It's owned by someone. It was built by someone. It exists. Your home, your office, the petrol station that you go to is a property of sorts. So really the landscape of property is quite broad. And thus, the investing landscape of property is equally as broad. And a lot of people then, develop a preference for where and how they would like to invest in property. And obviously that's also driven by the market trends and where the growth is coming from in the different subsectors. So that's just an overview, and I'm happy to go into some of those market trends in a bit more detail at a later stage.
And get to the market trends later,
if you want. But to answer your
a topic on its own. But yes, you can tell us more.
Then says, you ask who is eligible.
Mm-hmm.
Technically speaking,
just a moment. We're getting feedback from your mic there. I don't know if you have something that's...
Getting your feedback from my mic.
Yeah.
Let me check.
I wonder if there's something that's...
You're not having a problem with mine, right? Or is that mine?
It should be... Okay, how is it now, Newa?
Okay.
You're still getting feedback?
Yeah, we're still getting it. I can hear myself, Quimbe.
You're still getting feedback?
Yeah.
I have
what I'll
connected
do is...
Let me just remove my speaker, because I connected a speaker as well, because I've got viewers as well on TikTok. So let me just remove that speaker and hope that... Yeah. How is it now? Do you still get feedback?
Cool. No,
do you still get feedback?
Perfect.
Is it fine? Okay, so it was my speaker.
It's fine.
Sorry about that.
Good.
Sorry about that for you, Chukati.
All right, Visa, sorry about that. Yeah. All right, you can shoot. Back to that question.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, so
sorry, I thought we're gonna talk about the market trends, but I like the fact that you were actually dissecting property investments into smaller bites so that we can be able to chew. So yes, we like that. You can continue on that, and then tell us the different people who can invest and how they can invest in it.
Yeah. So I mean, the short answer is that anyone can invest in property. Anyone who has, fulfilled certain conditions. But again, it depends where and how and at what level, right? So my answer remains anyone. And what I mean by anyone, I'm saying if you are looking to invest directly and let's say purchase a residential property in your own name,
mm-hmm.
To be able to finance that investment, you would usually get a bond from the bank. And the bank will assess your affordability based on your own profile. In other words, your income versus your expenditure, and they would make an assessment and whether they would finance you or not. That's, of course, if you were going the route of having property finance, which is recommended.
Yes.
But there are other ways to invest. If you are not looking to own a property, for example, in your own name, or to invest directly. So you can invest through alternative investment mechanisms or through fractional ownership platforms, such as, the likes of like Easy Properties or some kind of online platforms. There are also, as I said, a number of investment clubs and property stokvels, such as the Sakisizwe Property Stokvel, where members contribute, a manageable amount every month, and they collectively invest into property. So really, the sector, I think, or the opportunities are open and they're vast, and one needs to really just look at their own circumstances and what they have appetite for. There are many people who don't have an interest in direct property ownership because they just that's not their flavor, and so they choose to rather invest in listed property companies because those companies are well managed, they have a good track record, your money is protected, at least because there's governance structure.
You know where you can go if you want your money back.
Yes, the JSE, is a regulated platform. So some people would prefer to go through a listed platform or a listed company. Others who have maybe a higher risk appetite or want to invest in a different way would choose other platforms. So there's many different ways to invest, and I think property investment, like any investment, doesn't matter whether you're investing in property or investing in buying shares in BP or Shell or Amazon or Tesla. You have to look at the investment on its merits, and you can't invest emotionally. I think many of us think, when you see a beautiful house, you go, "Oh, I love it, and I'm buying it." And
Just wanna buy
just because
it.
it's beautiful, or just because it looks good, and it doesn't make it a good investment. So, like any investment, you have to understand the market in which you are investing, the economic climate, the circumstances, the trends in that industry or in that market that you're investing. And you need to understand that with rewards, there comes risk. So the best way to manage those risks is to educate yourself and to inform yourself about that thing that you are investing in. Yeah.
That's great.
There's a show on DSTV about property. They selling property, and I've seen one house they like selling for 85 million rand around something. And I'm thinking, people have a lot of money just to invest on 85 million rand of a house. And you find that they don't even stay in the house like for every day. It's a vacation house. So how does that help into coining it as an investment? Because you don't get to stay in the house full time. You just come on vacations. The house is somebody's cleaning it and taking care of it. Is it a wise move for that, or because I have money I can go buy it and just add it to my list of property?
Yeah. So I suppose it's a good question. The kind of common wisdom is that the home that you live in, the house that you occupy, is not in essence an investment. It's not it can't really be treated as an investment. Just because something is made of brick and mortar, it does not mean it's an investment. An investment has to be something that is been purchased. It's an asset that has growth potential, etc., where you are looking at it from that lens. Not every property purchase is going to be an investment. And there's many properties, and I'm sure many investors will tell you, that are not good investments. But you buy them because you like it. And because, you want to have a holiday home. Pardon?
Because you can afford it.
Yeah, maybe you can afford it. Maybe, it just makes sense for the, the way you want to build your assets. So there's a lot of people that buy property not necessarily with a purely commercial lens, but if you are looking at property from a commercial lens, then
I think a network, yes.
Yeah.
Sorry, we know what happens in South Africa. We were using a new platform, and for the first time, we decided not to pre-record it for such instances. But let's hope we will get Vuyiswa back.
Yeah.
And Newa, you were talking about the investment. We will wait for her to come back and join us.
Yes, yeah.
We were talking about, Vuyiswa is talking about good investments and bad investments.
Mm-hmm.
It makes me think most of the times we don't really understand what we're investing in. Mm-hmm. So now Vuyiswa has to clarify to us to say, okay, for me to say that I am doing a good investment, what is it that I have to look for? Because looking at that house in Sandton, it could be that it's not a good investment because it's not going to yield any returns. So what is it that I have to look at for me to be able to say, okay, this is the perfect investment and it will yield returns? Looks like we've got Vuyiswa back.
Oh, yeah. She's coming in.
Yeah, hi. Sorry about that.
Yes, we understand. We said, I'm talking to Noah now saying that, for the first time we decided not to pre-record our talk show, but we know what happens in South Africa with electricity and the network and everything. But we're happy that you are back. Yes.
So you're talking about...
I was just really saying that, in closing, just saying that not every property purchase is an investment. And one needs to be very sincere and honest with themselves about why they're buying a certain property. Is it to fulfill your own dream of having a seaside property or a farm or whatever? And if that's what it is, then take it for that. Not everything has to be an investment.
Okay. Now,
so what is it that one has to look for, Vuyiswa, when they want to make an investment, when they want to invest in properties? Because I think this is what I encounter on a daily basis, to say people are interested in investing in properties, like the actual properties, not going through the JSE route of property investments, but they want to invest in actual investments. What is it that one has to look for to say, okay, if I do 1, 2, 3, this will be a good property? Do you have anything that you can recommend to our viewers?
Well, so I think what people have to recognize and understand is that property investment. So I think there's a misconception. People kind of think that, you buy the house, and the house is the investment. It's not actually the house that's the investment. It's the income that you generate from that flat or that house that contributes to the growth of your investment. So, and I hope I'm still audible. Can you hear me?
You are audible. I could hear what you were saying because I was connecting what you are saying. I hope all our listeners are able to catch as well.
Okay. Yeah. All right. So essentially what I'm saying is one of the primary things that one should be looking for in an investment opportunity is the income potential of that property. So are there currently tenants? And if there are tenants, how much are they paying in that property? And what is your potential post-purchase to either get that same rental or to get a higher rental, right? So if you are buying a property, there will be costs associated with owning that property. You might have to service a bond. You might have to pay rates and taxes, electricity. There will be operating costs. Depending on what kind of model you're going for. But essentially, there are costs associated, and then there's income generated from rental, right? And sort of just a basic income calculation is you want your income ultimately to exceed your expenses.
Your expenses,
So when evaluating that investment, you must look at all of those aspects to say, how much is my bond servicing cost? How much are my operating costs, rates, taxes, electricity, water, whatever it may be? Is there any capital expenditure I'm going to have to incur in terms of getting that property up to scratch, maybe to do some renovations or do whatever? And once you've done that exercise, you offset that and look at your income potential to say, what is the potential income that one can earn from this property? And not base it on just your dream. It's the market. The market dictates. If other similar properties, like properties in your area, are fetching, 5,000 Rand rental a month, the likelihood of you being able to get 10,000 Rand a month for a similar property is very slim. So the mistake that people make is they buy emotionally. They look at something and say, oh, this is beautiful, I like it, without necessarily assessing where is the market right now and what is the income versus expenditure associated with this property. So those are key elements to look at. Now, of course, there's other things to look at too in terms of sort of broader market trends. But I think what's more important, because property also, it's very much about, it's a localized business. If you're buying a 1-bedroom flat in Rosebank, there's a market rate already in that area, But a one bedroom in Rosebank is obviously not the same as a one bedroom in, I don't know, Brakpan. I don't know, I'm just throwing a name out. Those are two different areas.
Yeah.
So you obviously have to have a sense of what are the market conditions in a particular area, who is this target rental customer that I'm trying to target, and what is the income, what are the expenses. Now, that is on a buy to let kind of model. A lot of people they buy for the rent potential, and what a lot of people also don't consider is that there is even a cost, whether it's an actual cost, but it's even a cost of your time to managing that property, right? So you need to make sure that you are collecting rental timeously. You need to make sure that when something is broken in that property, let's say the tap falls off or something, your tenant is going to phone you, aren't they? Yeah. They're going to say, something is broken, the geyser has burst. Now suddenly you as a landlord, you need to find 5,000 Rand to service that geyser. So all of those considerations need to be taken into account when making that investment decision to say, do the operating costs and the potential capex involved in this investment, how does that stack up according to the potential income? And does this therefore make a viable investment? And what is my potential return on investment? And recognizing that grows over time, because obviously also as you pay down your bond, your interest rate is likely to,
yes.
The amount that you're paying will also start to reduce, right? But then there's also fluctuations in interest rates, as we've seen. So all of these things, pardon me?
Yes, I'm agreeing with you. We're going to that. What is the impact of the interest rate currently? Because we saw actually when it went down, people were able to get into the market to purchase. Now that it's going up, what will be the implication? Are we going to go back to us not being able to afford or to qualify to get bonds, or it will be like it is now? What will be the impact?
Well, I think banks, before approving bonds, do a certain level of affordability analysis, right? They do affordability analysis.
Yeah.
Hopefully for the purpose of minimizing the risk of default. But indeed, you're right. There are people who are living very close to the bone, and they may be affected by those interest rate fluctuations. So that's why I'm saying, even when making that purchase decision, you have to have that buffer in place, where you know that my expenses or my operating expenses may be 5,000 Rand a month, but I've got an income of, let's say, 7,000 Rand a month, and if there's a fluctuation a little bit north, I can stomach it, or I can plug the gap out of my own pocket, or whatever it may be. On a personal level, you're absolutely right. There are a lot of people who have been affected, but I must say that although the interest rate has increased, and I think the increase, we're currently sitting at a prime lending rate of 8.25%, which is 1.25% up from last year. But in saying that, we are still in a significantly better position than we were in 5 years ago, when the prime lending rate was, I think, at 9.5%, and at the highest level was around 10.5. 10%. So, the fluctuations will happen, but I think we are still in a very positive position relative to where property buyers were 20 years ago. 20 years ago, 15 years ago, interest rates were sitting in the 20s. So a lot of people ask, is this a good time to buy? I'd still say yes. There is a slight upward fluctuation, but I think if you buy within your means, it is still a good time to buy.
That was my question.
You were saying something there, what?
Yeah, no, that was my question there. That is it a good time to invest? So I think you answered my question.
Okay.
I can expand. Let me expand on that a little bit, right?
Please do.
Yes.
Yeah.
So, again, this is kind of what I was trying to frame in my opening, to say there's so many different categories, subcategories of the industry.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So there's no kind of, from a blanket perspective, one can't say, is it a good time or a bad time to invest? Property, by definition, is a long-term investment, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's not a gamble. It's not like you put money in a slot machine and you get out millions. That's certainly not, if that's what you're looking for, maybe you should be investing in Bitcoin or something else. Property is definitely not for you if that's what you're looking for.
It doesn't sound easy.
It's a long game. And the thing with a long game or a long-term investment is that the market fluctuates up and down constantly. But the trend shows that over a long period, let's say 10 years, ultimately it's an upward trajectory. Ultimately. So the key thing is that, you can't be driven by kind of today's news. Even COVID came and everyone panicked. Mm-hmm. And now 2 years later, here we are, like masks are off. It's like we're back to business as usual. People have returned back to their offices. People are, it's kind of business as usual. And sadly, but yes, it is. So, I always say that I think property is always a good investment. And there will always be ups and downs in the market. But if you take a long-term view, more often than not, the long-term investment will grow, and it will be a good investment. And I'm not here actually dishing out investment advice. I'm just trying to
No. Disclaimer to everyone: this is not an investment advice. If you want a direct advice, you can speak
advice.
to me directly. You can contact me directly for you to get advice. This is just general information.
Yeah.
Just general.
Before people make a financial decision and they say Vuyiswa and Fikile and now hosted a talk show and they said we should invest here.
I do not subscribe to what they think.
Yes. Vuyiswa, you mentioned something in terms of investing in properties that I want you to clarify to our listeners out there that most of the time we're looking at the income when it comes in. We don't look at the bad debts. Every business has got its own bad debts. If your tenant is not paying, so when you're making the calculations, if your tenant is not paying, it means there's no income, but there's expenses.
Yes.
You're still liable for those expenses. I just want us to put it out there, plus what you've mentioned, to say the cost doesn't only end when you are looking at what will be coming in and what are the expenses. At times you will find that you've got a tenant who's not, or tenants who are not paying for the longest time, or you don't get tenants at all for a certain period. Then what is going to happen?
Yeah, that's a really good question. And again, what I always say is that the business of property investment is actually the business of property management. There's a misconception that property investment is a passive investment. Like, people always talk about this passive investing in property. Yeah. There is nothing passive about it. Property. And to your point, if you are allowing or putting yourself in a position where a tenant can go months without paying you, it demonstrates poor or ineffective property management. And that is a direct risk to you, your income, your credit record, etc. So, the best, most effective landlords are the ones who manage that risk by actively managing the tenant relationship. One, vetting of tenants. And, even if it means spending a bit of money on a service that can do those credit checks, or working with a practitioner, who can facilitate the credit checking, background checking, and tenant vetting. That's number one.
Mm-hmm.
Before they even come into your property, you could even cross-check or do reference checks with previous landlords to understand what type of tenant is this. So that vetting of tenants is critical. Number two.
I hear you. Visa, sorry to jump in like that. Vetting could have happened already. Let's say you had tenants pre-COVID or before COVID, and now when COVID hit, a lot of people lost their jobs and their income, and then they defaulted, and for a while you could not vacate anybody from your property because of a pandemic. Now we're coming out of the pandemic, and they're still owing you a lot of money. What do you do as a tenant? Because that obviously we cannot coin you as not doing your service.
Your background
check.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
As a landlord, yeah.
Absolutely. So I think the point I was trying to make was that so you're right in saying you may have done that vetting, but circumstances change.
Yeah.
Whether it's COVID, whether it's a job loss, whether it's whatever. And that's the business of dealing with humans, by the way, or even businesses. If you're a commercial landlord and you're dealing with businesses that go under, it happens.
Yeah.
So my point is that it's about managing that process. Month one, actually not even month one, day one.
Losing you.
Can you hear me now?
We can hear you, Vuyi.
Yeah, now we can.
Okay.
Are you able to see the
I'm
video?
saying it's really about not letting that situation persist for long. The quicker you act, the more you minimize the damage, So it's really about day one, when that rent is missed, you're engaging with your tenant. You're sending a letter, or you're phoning them, or you're doing whatever. You don't wait 3 weeks to follow up, And that administration, I'll use my own personal experience. When I was still in the rental market, I had a landlord who just used to send me my statements or my invoices late. She used to send them to me on the 30th or the 1st of the next month. Now, many young people will tell you that your salary comes on the 25th. By the 27th, it's long gone, Baba. It's finished. So, whoever
it's a challenge we've got in South Africa currently.
You're lucky. At worst, if that salary comes in on a Friday, by Monday.
By Monday it's gone.
So as a landlord, you must understand those dynamics. You make sure that your invoice is in by the 23rd, so that when that rent hits, when that payday hits on the 25th, you are first in line. It's that type of administration that is important, and it's what people really underestimate. And if you don't have the appetite for it, you must outsource that function. There are companies, there are businesses that do that professionally, where they have the resources, they have the team, the technology to help manage that process for you. Invoicing, rent collection, and also dealing with delinquent tenants and spotting them quickly, because that's the key thing, being able to act quickly. So I really advise...
You're talking about that, Visa, sorry to cut you. In South Africa, you cannot evict your tenants. Am I still correct by saying so? And you have to undergo the whole process, legal process of getting them removed. So what is it that you are saying in that sense? Like, let's say I decide to go into property business, and then I've got tenants who have a situation. You know, as Africans, we understand when there's a job loss. We understand when there's situations like funerals at home that were not planned for, and I don't have money to pay for rent, and I tell you when to pay. You know, it's actually reasonable conditions where somebody cannot be able to pay rent. And then for how long should I actually take that excuse? Or are you telling me that if I get into the property investment in that's the rental part side of it, if I get to that, I shouldn't be that understanding. I should take the first step. If you don't give me my rent, I should now be ready to legally take you out of my property.
Fikile, I thought this was a discussion about property investment. Not about how to lose money quickly and go into
Sorry, we want to make money, but at the same time...
Maybe I'm in the wrong place.
No, you are in the right place. My apologies.
No, and the reason I'm saying that is because I hear you, and I think we all have that empathy, because we are all human, we all Africans, we understand these issues. But your bank is not going to apply the same empathy and Ubuntu to you when they blacklist you.
That's true.
So you need to decide what is the cost of your empathy and how much appetite do you have for that, right?
Okay.
And I say this really with all the empathy in the world. But
no, I understand. I just wanted to hear from you to say that. I mean, I think most people have got siblings who actually lost in properties because of that. They had too much empathy.
And this is why I'm saying
their pockets at the end of the day.
This is why I'm saying, Swada, outsource this thing. Outsource this thing.
Don't be part of it.
Outsource it to professionals. There are companies. It is not true that you cannot evict someone. You can evict people in South Africa, but there are processes to be followed.
That you have to follow.
If you don't follow the processes correctly, yes, you could find yourself in a legal bind.
Okay.
Most of us do not have the expertise, the legal knowledge, the understanding of how to manage that process. Hence why we find ourselves in a bind. Where possible, find a company or an expert or a registered practitioner who can manage your properties on your behalf.
Okay.
They will ask for a percentage. I assure you that 7% or whatever that they charge you is well worth it in the long run. Because the cost of dealing with tenants, you know, as you say, you may have a tenant who is a single mother, and this month maybe baby daddy didn't pay, and Loana, you're looking at the situation and you say, oh, Gosiam, she's got 2 children, she's a lovely lady, Shem. But do that once and it'll happen again, and ultimately you will fund that process. So
let's see if we can
are you in it for,
diversify
are you an
this topic.
Are you a non-profit
I know we're
organization,
talking about property.
or are you an investor?
I lost you. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you clearly.
Oh, okay, all right. Just your video is off for some reason. I don't know what's wrong.
My video?
Yeah.
No. Oh, I can see myself clearly. I don't know. Fix, can you see me?
I think it's the recording. It's just advising that your internet is weak. That's it.
Yeah.
Oh.
But it's fine. The recording will show you a video.
Yeah.
All right. We briefly spoke, or maybe not briefly, but we deliberated on the property, how to invest in property. But is it only just property that one can invest in, or do we have trends that are happening now that maybe one can engage themselves in? Because in 2021, I was just checking out this website, the leading retail outlets sales for 2021 were the household furniture, appliances, and equipment. That was taking a lead in 2021. and was trending. What is trending now? Is it buying property to make money out of it, or is there a lot of things that are trending that one can look into?
So, I mean, I can't really speak to other industries, but maybe I could touch on some of the trends within the sector. So, what I personally love about property, and I studied economics. I'm an economist at my heart, So I love what I love about property is that it really is very symbolic of what is happening. It's a very tangible way to see what is happening in our economy and in people's daily lives. So you talk about trends, but the trends are very tangible, in the property space. So retail, for example, you've touched on retail. What has happened in the last 2 to 3 years in terms of retail? Well, online shopping, we know, has started to uptick a bit in retail, right? And the way people engage with retail spaces has also changed. So people, in the last 2 years, people were working from home a lot more. So they were looking for retail closer to their home. And they were looking for more convenience retail, as opposed to, in the old days when you'd go to like a big mega mall and whatever. So the trend has really been towards more convenience retail, smaller format shopping centers, localized shopping centers, such as shopping centers within townships. People are looking for closer retail. And definitely those more, what do you call them, smaller format shopping centers have been the ones that have actually been a lot more resilient and shown a lot more growth in the recent terms. And again, going back to the topic of online shopping, it's still very small percentage-wise in South Africa, but it's growing. We've seen the growth of online shopping platforms. And that has an impact on even what happens in the live retail environment, right? And the amount of space that retailers occupy. So that's also resulted in a growth of the industrial and logistics space in the sector. Because now online shoppers need to have distribution centers and facilities closer to customers. You'll see even the likes of Takealot. They have, kind of drop-off centers and distribution centers and whatever in the urban centers. So industrial areas are no longer just these far-flung areas. They're coming a lot closer to where people live, because a lot of this is driven by the trends in online e-commerce, just-in-time delivery trends, etc., etc. And I mean, the likes of Amazon are now coming to South Africa, and I'll be very interested to see what's going to happen in the online market, and as a result, what's going to happen in the property market with some of these bigger players now entering the market. And then, of course, you've still got, the office sector. The office sector has been under a lot of strain for the last couple of years, even before COVID. But I think COVID was kind of that nail in the coffin that sealed the deal for the office sector. A lot of people obviously have started downsizing their footprint in the office sector. So if you're an investor who is looking at the office sector, you need to approach with caution. And I say this because I'm not saying office sector is dead. No. There are still those pockets of opportunity within the office sector, So people are downsizing maybe out of bigger offices, maybe into smaller offices. Again, looking for more localized office space. It's also regional. People are leaving certain regions and moving to other regions. So you have to have an understanding of what is happening actually in the country right now, and what are the driving forces, and that will inform where those investment opportunities actually arise. So definitely. And then again, in the residential space, the residential space is a very interesting space, the highest kind of growth area is really in that sort of 1 million rand segment, that sort of 900 to 1.2 million rand segment of the market. And I think, looking at the statistics, the average age of a first-time home buyer is age 37. So it's actually it's older than I would have thought, quite frankly. But I think we'll start to see that age also coming down a bit as people get more aware of property and start to be more conscious about property.
Educated as well. Yeah.
And those first-time home buyers, their average bond size is 1 million rand. So that tells you a lot about where that growth is also coming from, right? The higher end of the market, your kind of 3.4 million upwards, has been very slow over the last 2 to 3 years. Where that growth is pumping is in that affordable segment. So 1 million rand mark, and even that kind of 700,000 to 1 million rand mark is growing. I recently saw an article about an estate that has now come up in Soweto. I think it's by the towers. They're building this enormous lifestyle estate, Yeti townhouse, and wada in the heart of Soweto.
Yeah.
And
I
selling
think it's a
houses
good market area, actually, looking at
yes, absolutely.
the people visiting the area. Even if it doesn't work out as a residential area, it could work out as like your Airbnb, or you want
but
people
even as a residential area, many people, there's a misconception that people want to move to the suburbs. It's not true.
Yeah, no.
People actually do enjoy living
in Soweto,
where they come from.
Yeah.
Because Soweto is nice. It's fun. That's where your family is. That's where your friends are.
Take me to
Soweto. What you're looking for, maybe you want the quality of accommodation that you can get in Midrand or in Fourways.
Look,
Yeah.
So why
Soweto
not bring it
has
in?
been made an icon. You have a lot of places like Soweto that are dead. Where I'm coming from Garankuwa, and I sold my house anyway over 10 years ago. It was a dead space. The only thing that was closed was the Technicon, and that's it. You had to travel for everything. So I hear what you're saying, that you also need to look at where you're investing. Because those houses, yes, if I build a 1 million worth of a house in Garankuwa, that would be a waste of investment. How much will I get out of it? Where people are moving out of a place like Garankuwa to a modernized place where it's closer to most amenities.
all the facilities.
So it's something that you also we need to consider.
But you see other parts, where there's a huge growth. I was in, my family's from Middlelands in Soweto, and I was there recently. I couldn't believe what I saw there. It was like there's all these the backroom market. It's gone from just being the room. Now people are building double, not just bedrooms, like apartment blocks, mini apartment blocks of 6 or 10 or 12 units, beautifully fitted out, and the rental market is strong there. Even though the rentals may not be super high, you could be renting out for 2,500 rand a month, but the market is there.
There's a market.
So you have to look at all of those different dynamics and really think about where you have appetite. And what you know best. I think there's this misconception again that everybody wants to buy in Fourways or Sandton or wherever is the Lani area, but that may not necessarily be where you actually get the highest return on investment. You may get a much higher return on investment.
The network.
Yeah, no.
You back? We can hear you.
Okay, we can hear you.
Okay. Yeah, I'm saying you might get a much higher return on investment in an area that you didn't expect. You might make an investment into back rooms, Kotembisa or whatever, and get very high yields because of the nature of that area and the demand and the rental and etc. So, one needs to look at each investment on its merits and there are market trends, but I always say, you can't, there's no blanket truth. That you can understand what's happening in the market, but you also have to assess your investment opportunity on its own merits.
Yeah.
Okay. One of our listeners is asking, I think they back to what we were discussing earlier in terms of the interest rates, to say if we get an interest rate hike, can you pass it to your tenants anytime when that happens, or how do you go about it?
Well, as you'll know, most tenant-landlord relationships are governed by a document called a lease agreement.
Nero,
right?
can
So
you hear me? Is
the
it
lease
me
agreement,
or is it?
I hope it's not me
Visa.
again.
Okay, we lost
both.
you, Vuyiswa, but you got my question, right?
Yes, I got your question clearly.
Okay. May you please start from the beginning in answering?
Yeah, I was saying that the relationship between a tenant and a landlord would ordinarily be governed by a lease agreement, which is a contractual agreement. So that rental is locked in. It's determined by the lease agreement and the length of that lease agreement. Of course, once that lease comes up for renewal, nothing stops the landlord from raising the rent.
Okay.
But what one has to be aware of is that the market will always dictate. You can't just raise your rent if the market is not also raising the rent. Because if you are now 2,000 Rand more than the average similar property, you will lose tenants. Or you will have a high turnover of tenants, because tenants are quite price sensitive generally. So you have to, those are the decisions you have to balance, and that's why in the beginning I said you always want to have a bit of a buffer when you plan your investment and when you do your calculations. Don't do it too close to the bone. Don't look and say, okay, my bond is 6,300, I'm charging 6,300 rent. No.
I think you are right in saying that, Vuyiswa. I think when you have to do any investment, it's like having a retail store. If you've got that and you're charging exactly on your stock with what you have to pay, I mean, you're not going to make money. So there will be theft. There'll be so much involved. So you have to look into it before you enter into it. If you want to be involved in property investments, you need to understand what it means to be involved in property investments before you can jump in. Did I get you correct?
And I used to own a retail store, so I am very familiar with the pain of owning a retail store.
Yes, because there are costs involved, like you say, in properties as well. There are costs that are involved. You have to cater for them before you can actually get into it.
All right.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for expanding on this topic. I think our listeners really were able to get the gems out of this discussion. Unfortunately, we've run out of time. Time flew. I didn't even see it. I'll just give you 30 seconds to wrap up, Vuyiswa, and Fikile, you can also wrap up. Just say what can you offer on the table for our listeners? If there's anything they need, what can you offer? Just in 30 seconds, in closing.
Well, look, I mean, firstly, thank you for having me. Firstly, thank you for having me. I think it's been a very riveting discussion, and I hope that your listeners have actually been able to gain something from this discussion. I don't know what I can offer per se, but I am available to be contacted if anyone wants to, chat a bit more about this topic. I'm available on LinkedIn. That's probably the best platform. I'm quite active there. I'm involved in many other different forums. So I think if they just jump onto my platforms, Vuyiswa Ramokupa is my name. At VRM is my handle on a lot of platforms, Twitter, Instagram, whatever. I'm there. So, I think the conversation continues. I'm happy to continue the conversation with those who are online and listening. And
Thank you. Oh, that's a nice
Thank
wrap-up.
you, Vuyiswa, for blessing
wrap up
us with your presence as well today. I've learned a thing or two in property, Now I know that I don't have to look at that house and like it and say I'm buying. I should think twice before making that purchase. And our listeners, our listeners on TikTok this side, they appreciate your conversation. They want us to have it further. So probably we'll discuss it with Vuyiswa and see if we can have, because there's so much that we were unpacking. There's so much that we want to know. So we will invite Vuyiswa at some other time to come and join us on our talk shows. And then we will inform you in due course if she says yes. But by the look of things, listeners, I'm looking at her. She is saying yes already.
And the camera's on now,
Yes, and thank you very much, Neo, for your platform. I mean, it works for all of us. I think most listeners, or if it's your first time joining us on our talk show, Neo Morabedi Productions talk show, you should know me by now. I'm a financial consultant. If you want advice now, if you want advice about the investments, because we were not dishing out an advice, we were just having a conversation, you can contact me on TikTok. My bio has got my contact details. You can follow me as well on LinkedIn. I'm Fikile Nkosi. You can follow me on Instagram, on Facebook. It's FPP at Fikile, and we can have a further discussion on that. Thank you very much, Vuyiswa and Neo.
All right. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining. Thanks for all the comments. And we're wrapping up our show. We'll see you next week again with a brand new topic. Be on the lookout on the statuses there, WhatsApp, Facebook, LinkedIn. We'll be posting what we'll be chatting about. And we apologize that this is a new platform that we had to jump in. It was an emergency. So hopefully we'll iron things out, we'll go back to our normal platform, or else maybe we'll invest more on this platform.
On this platform. I actually like this platform now. You asked me when we started our conversation as to how do I view it. I think I like this platform because I can even join in using my cell phone. So I don't have to be sitting down and be on my computer like the platform that we usually use. So this might be a good platform going forward, but hey, we'll hear from you, our producer.
We'll let you know. All right.
Yes.
Thank you, guys. Enjoy your evening, and we'll talk soon.
Thank you.
Have a wonderful evening.
Okay, please don't log out. Just wait a few seconds and for your upload to finish up. If you look on the top there, it will tell you how much time is left.
I'll mute my mic because I have to entertain my listeners this side as well.
Oh, yes. Okay.
Well, I don't have listeners. I have to entertain the children.
Thanks, Vuyiswa.
You can switch off your camera and mouse and mic until it's done. Then you disconnect. You